Okay, so this is a conversation between myself and David, who's in Australia, and I'm in New Zealand. We have loved each other's countries, and we're now friends, and there is no rivalry. We say with love. Yeah, I don't think we're not really sports people, are we? So we're not going to have that kind of competition.
No, and I'm from England anyway, so I'm kind of yeah, I'm a bit all over the place when it comes to that kind of stuff. So
should I try and trump that by saying, well, I'm actually from Source?
well, there you go. There you go.
Okay, so wherever we're residing in, it's quite helpful because it's good time zones.
Yeah.
So David emailed me saying that he'd noticed that there is cycles in his clients, and we were marveling at the fact that we get the same information and the same purposes and reasons why bodies are responding the way that they are, which is fantastic, great proof. And we were just talking about how even Dolores Cannon was noticing the trends and the cycles of what the body's diseases were saying to the client. When we asked the subconscious knew exactly why the person had manifest certain physical ailments. Of course, we all think that we're special and unique, and we have different traumas to identify our hardship in our lives. But the reality is we all get to experience the same range of emotions, and however we choose to hold on to certain emotions and have different belief systems of ourselves, that can produce different ailments that we then want to disconnect, that we possibly couldn't have done that to ourselves. We're victims to our bodies. Anyway, so David, share with me anything that you want to, and I will chime in when I feel.
Okay, yeah. So as you were saying, I think that we're here at the moment to try and understand how we can work with our emotional body and integrate our emotions and how they actually affect our physical anatomy as well. And so as we're moving into a new age of energy, I think it's really important to start understanding a lot more about our energetic anatomy and how that plays a role in the physical expression in our body. And so as you were saying, emotions can be related to certain ailments, and I think that again certain organs play a part in that too. So anybody that's dealing with I guess an idea of stress from the outside or a fear of threat from the outside can generally attribute that to kind of gut issues or candida or something like that. And one thing that I've noticed as well, because in my own journey I had candida, and when I really spent some time in self-inquiry trying to get to the root of that, root actually being the operative word because it was affecting me in the lower part of my digestive system. And as I worked on and I reflected on my beliefs, my behaviors and patterns, I could see that there was this energy associated with my tribe, my family, and how I saw my childhood, and the fact that now as an adult, I kind of felt as though I had to be better than my parents or be better than my childhood. And so that created this energy of competition, shall we say, which is obviously centered in the digestive region of the body. And so it stands to reason that candida is expressed through that, and so as I worked through that belief and started to break down some of the illusions that I was living about my life, and bringing in forgiveness and respect and reverence for my history, I noticed straight away that the candida, the symptoms started to subside very quickly. And I wasn't following any kind of set diet or anything like that. I was just changing the way I felt or the emotions associated with my childhood. So I think that's a really, I guess, my own personal experience of how emotions and beliefs can really affect our biology. And in that, I actually reached out to a few people in a particular candida group for their testimony as to their psychospiritual attachments to their imbalance. And interestingly, most of them were coming back with issues around childhood and connection to their family and things like that. So it's very interesting, you know, how a particular frame of mind or belief or emotion will store itself in a part of the body. I also recently was speaking with someone who asked for some advice around a thyroid issue, which is generally, you know, it affects the throat. And so my response was that the line of inquiry would be to look at where the person is at with their authentic choice, and whether or not someone is making choices for them, or if they're being controlled in some way, or if they feel they're being controlled in some way. And the response I got back was, oh my God, I can't believe how accurate that is. This person is going through a divorce from a very controlling relationship where they weren't really able to express themselves without being belittled or anything like that. And interestingly, with thyroid issues, I guess we know that generally a thyroid issue tends to affect women more than men. And that's not really surprising, because I think you would probably agree that in today's world, women's voices are more controlled than men's, and that's obviously going to change as the feminine power expresses more. But at the moment, I think that really talks to why women experience thyroid issues more than men. So again, another really interesting connection there. And I think what I'm trying to say is that when we're experiencing an imbalance in our health, it's really important to take some time in self-inquiry and just ask yourself, where am I imbalanced, not just physically, but where are my emotions imbalanced, where are my beliefs, attitudes and behaviors imbalanced, you know. And generally, if you follow that line of inquiry, you can start to see how these things attach to certain organs or certain aspects of your biology. So yeah, I think when it comes to, because we talk a lot about doing the inner work, you know, and healing. And a lot of people, I think a lot of people kind of get a bit lost on that because they don't really know what that means. And I believe that healing and inner work starts with self-reflection always. You know, it's about understanding what choices you're making, what the quality of those choices are, which are leading you in certain directions in your life. Because we are the creators of our individual reality, and so we get to decide how we balance our emotions based on our beliefs and our connections to our tribe and our connections to society, and how those things influence how we feel. And so there's always an opportunity to assess, well, I feel this way, why do I feel this way? Where's that come from? And is that how I really feel, or is that an influence that's being taken from elsewhere or someone else? Or what you know, how authentic is this? How true to myself am I being? Because if I in any way am compromising on my own integrity, my own truth, my own sovereignty, then perhaps I am giving my biology a message that says that I'm not in balance, and therefore it's going to be expressed in some way. So yeah.
I love it. Absolutely. Some great words of wisdom there. We definitely are the creators of our own individual reality, and our reflections in our health really are reflections of our inner work still left to overcome and master. And that you know, just common sayings actually can give us key points to what's actually going on for us. You know, if you do have digestion issues, what are you not able to stomach?
Exactly.
You know, like that's that common saying, those old wives' tales almost kind of come true when you actually stop and think about the words and the actual intention behind it. You know, sometimes when we are having stomach or bowel things, you know, we're releasing things that we just don't want to hold on to anymore. It's so, our body is so literal to what our mindsets are processing. The whole Candida thing is incredibly interesting, because when we do have inner child work still, instead of going back to be and sit with that inner child and love that child and let that child know it's not alone, and protect that child from whatever it needs to be protected from, or whatever the issues are, when we don't want to go back and feel those feelings that that inner child is really crying out for acknowledgement, instead of sitting with those feelings, because we almost are allergic to our feelings, remember that, I mean, I say that with love, but instead of facing those feelings that we did have as the younger versions of self, we want to quickly feed that child with sugar and treats. We want to treat it. We want to give it physical things instead of what we really need to do, which is the emotional things. And the forget materialism, it just distracts us. And while we are out adults and we can afford our own sugar treats, what we're really doing is still trying to feed that inner child. And we use food as love. And sometimes we don't want to feel love, so we starve ourselves. Sometimes we desperately want to feel love, so we indulge. Whatever we're doing to our body is really still screaming out to us what our inner work is.
Yeah, indeed. And it's like you were saying before about the language of the body, or what's the message really. If you've got digestive issues, what can't you stomach? And I think if we are, as we're moving into this age of energy, energy is very instant, and energy doesn't have a story, it's just truth. And so if we're going to be looking at our bodies through that lens, I think we'd probably be well served adopting a more symbolic sight to everything that happens in our life, not just our health, but everything. Because in that way of reflection, it's almost like we're down here playing a role. And if you imagine like watching a movie, you watch a movie and you're always trying to work out what the ending is going to be, based on the symbols that you are acknowledging within the movie. And I don't think that our lives are really much different than that, because we're always being given an opportunity to reflect on our choices based on how the environment plays itself out in front of us. And so if we start to bring a more of an impersonal, symbolic sight to our circumstances, it can take us right to the root of an issue much quicker than if we start to tell a story about all the external things that have led into us being in this moment, whether it's our childhood or our relationships or our jobs or mortgages or whatever it is. Those are all there, but we are still making choices. And so we can take a more symbolic sight and understand that, for example, what another illness that seems to be up and coming at the moment is Lyme's. And so this is where people get bitten by a tick, and then they have all this fatigue and other symptoms that are coming after that. But interestingly, with that illness, antibiotics seems to treat it within a couple of weeks, but then people seem to continue to have symptoms after that, and it's known as post-treatment Lyme's disease. And it's interesting because, and I say this impersonally, I don't want anyone to take anything I'm going to say personally, but I think often sometimes when we have an illness or a disease and we receive condolence or empathy or support through that, we can start to get a bit addicted to that attention. And so it kind of then embellishes our story, and in that way can prolong symptoms, because we're telling our biology that even though we have an illness, we like how the power that gives us. It's almost like a false sense of empowerment, because we know that through that we are receiving attention from the outside world. And so I think that with certain illnesses, and Lyme's could be one of these, it hangs around because without realizing it, we actually enjoy the attention that we get because of it. And as I said, I say that with love. I don't want anyone to take anything we say personally here, but it's just something to think about, because one thing that I've noticed with a lot of clients of mine is that they say they want to heal, but they get stuck on the journey because they don't want to let go of the identity that's been created around their illness, because that's what their life is, that's how they live, and they're used to receiving uh, as I said, support and guidance from outside through that illness. And so the idea of letting that go, it means that they have to move into the unknown. And that's scary because we like what we know. We don't like change, and I think we discussed before about the different archetypal patterns that come in. And one thing that I've noticed really strongly at the moment is the child archetype. We just talked about that with Candida. And I think that archetype is really strong at the moment because as this world is changing, we don't like change that fast. And so the child in us wants to grab hold of the leg of our divine parent because we don't want to go. We don't want to move at the pace of the planet. And so it creates this child energy of, no, I don't want to go, I want to stay, and I want everything to stay as it is. I want to be supported. And so it brings out this dialogue, this vocabulary of the child, and then the attitude of the child as well. We stomp and kick when we don't get our own way. And that's something that I think is quite loud in the collective at the moment, as well as the victim. Those two archetypes go really well together. There's a massive victim consciousness out there right now. And the thing about that is if you feel that you've been victimized, as soon as you're in that dialogue, you're connected to everybody else in the collective that also feels that way. And so the language that these people speak it's all very similar. You can kind of predict the next thing they're going to say because they're living in that consciousness of, I've been victimized, I'm this, I'm that, and therefore that's how it's expressed, And so this is kind of what I mean about looking at our lives a bit more symbolically and impersonally, because we're all I guess projecting patterns of behavior or archetypal characteristics that are there to show us ourselves. It's an opportunity to reflect. And when you realize what story you're running, what archetype is running you can immediately get off that hamster wheel and start to make changes. And so it's not really, that's why self-reflection is so important, because as soon as you can say to yourself, okay, I'm letting the child speak for me here. And the minute you know that's a really beautiful step on your journey, because you can start to observe how that language and that vibration dictates choice in your life. And you can then start to make more empowered choices, so you can heal and grow and evolve, just as you're always destined to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. If there is a payoff for someone being sick, they will choose the payoff over getting healthy. And and if you've ever been in that situation, or if you find yourself in that situation now, a really healthy question you could have for yourself is, what am I seeking from others? Because the reality is you can always provide for yourself, even though it feels like, well, I don't really want to just love myself, I want everyone to do it for me. The reality is we're very powerful, and self-empowerment is fantastic. It truly, truly is, because you're always with yourself, and you can't always find others who are trying to do their own inner work when you may need it. So therefore, empowering yourself to profoundly love yourself and give yourself everything that you need, attention, comfort, sympathy, have a little victim party with yourself. And that's totally fine. You're allowed to feel all those feelings, but don't get stuck in either of them to find your neutral and balance.
Yeah, and that that talks to the polarity of where, I mean, because we're living our life through a very polarized lens a lot of the time too, which interestingly affects the digestive area, because it's our lower energy body where we start to experience polarity as we become two. We develop the two ovaries, the two testicles, and from there everything becomes two. And so this idea of polarity is, how do we relate to the other? Are we looking at them as competition, or are we looking at them as an opportunity to reflect on ourselves? And so I also think when it coming back to emotions, if you are experiencing something like shame in your life, then I think a good line of inquiry for you would be to look also at where you experience pride, because pride is the opposite end of the polarity to shame. And so if you are experiencing shame, it might be that somewhere else in your life there is there is a projection of pride too, not necessarily from you, but you might actually feel shame because someone else is putting their pride onto you. So it's just looking at things a bit more energetically, and through that lens of polarity. Where am I experiencing polarity? Where do I attach myself to wrong or right, or this or that, or good or bad? And how can I actually synthesize the two poles into neutrality within me? Because we are beings of light and dark, and we're not meant to have one or the other. It's a synthesis of both. So any polarized thinking which says, well, this is wrong and this is right, essentially is going to take you down that path towards an imbalance. And any statements of finality, like always, never, should, would, could, that language, I think is really key to address. What words do you use to frame your experience? If you are looking at your life through a lens of blame, which is a victim, the word of a victim, or resentment, or entitlement, or deserve, if you use any of those words in your vocabulary, then they're low vibration, and they're potentially going to affect your balance. So I think when it comes to health, it's really important also to look at words and vocabulary, because there's a reason they call it spelling, because you cast a spell with every word that you use. And so what are the quality of the words that you're using, and where are those words? Are those words of the ego, which are words that are dominated by the idea of survival? Or are they words of the soul, which are words that are dominated by the language of grace? So forgiveness, compassion, wisdom, piety, and all those beautiful, graceful words that carry such high vibration. And I think that we, as time moves forward, it's important for us to move more into the soul and actually look at the graces that we can cultivate within in order to heal, because we're getting to that stage now where we're realizing that there's a lot more to this experience than just the physical reality, and that part of our journey is to go within and experience the truth. Right now, as I mentioned, we're kind of looking at our life through the survival anatomy of our biology, but we need to kind of move up to the heart now and actually start speaking from the heart, which is all about truth. What is the truth? And I really feel that if we were living completely truthfully all the time, that our health would be so much more imbalanced. I think it's the deceptions and the masks that we adopt that create that imbalance. Because if you have to keep up an illusion, if you have to keep up a story, a narrative, which isn't true, you are giving your life force to something that is not true, that is an illusion. And it basically takes you out of this present moment, and you're attaching energetic tendrils to things that aren't real, and you're giving your energy to keep up a story. So how can we cut those cords and actually bring our energy body back into the present moment, where healing is going to be expedited because you are in this moment where where your energy is feeding your health?
Great, many different points. I want to get back to your statement of words being spells.
Yeah.
If you believe that, then you're going to be victim to all the negativity that is trying to be enchanted onto you. So I say, let's just dismiss that it's our belief systems that could almost put us under a spell. And if we're not aware of our belief systems, then that's when we can get into a tricky statement. For me personally, when I'm reading other people's messages and I'm listening to other people's words, if I had the belief that it was casting spells on me, then that would disempower me. So I want to be empowered and say that I can hear all words and I can hear all intentions, and I have a choice where I move, where I freely move. And I was reading one of the posts on Facebook, and it really stuck out to me. If we believe words are spells, we will be cast under many. And I really, use your free will, do whatever you want. But I just wanted to say that I think if we accept, okay, cool, yeah, words are spells, then we're allowing us to be impressed on different agendas that may not be for our highest good. So maybe just as a little teamwork now, we can just say we will release any words that don't serve us. We release ourselves from any agendas that don't serve us. And when we ask for healing, I mean, everyone wants healing. Everyone comes into these sessions and they say, I want profound healing for my subconscious. I want to be squeaky clean and fantastic and shining and sparkly. And the reality is they can do very, very powerful things in these sessions when they get to the root cause of it. They never fix the symptoms. They go and find the root issue, which is our belief systems that has been created. And as you were saying, when we start living in our truth, we've got to purge all the crap that we've been holding on to. So magically, we just don't get healed. And then voila, all of this gets purged out of us. We actually have to purge and move through the healing process, which is releasing the shit that doesn't serve us. And so a lot of people want this healing, and it's like in sessions when we ask about, can you remove all the heavy metals in the client's systems? Those heavy metals just don't disappear, evaporate into magic. They actually have to be then released out of the cells and then flushed through the system. That's a heavy detox, heavy detox of heavy metals, right? Like, it is not a fun journey, but you want to release it. And the more heavy metals you have in your body, the more crappy you feel. But you have to heal from that. So when we live in our heart space and we live in our truth and our integrity, there is, unfortunately, a releasing phase of all the crap. So we don't instantly feel amazing and empowered when we start speaking our truth, because you know what? It starts feeling very awkward when we want to say to our friends, I love you, and it sounds like you're in fear still from that relationship that failed 30 years ago. Like, you know, like you start having some really fucking awkward, honest conversations with your friends, and you don't want to upset them. You don't want to hurt their feelings, but you're having to start actually sharing the bigger perspective. And as we know, being triggered is a beautiful opportunity for growth and experiences and lessons to overcome it and empower ourselves through it. And that is hard. It is so hard to be responsibly loving our friends and family while still being in our truth bubble.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's such a good point, because the journey of self-esteem often comes with a lot of changes in the relationship dynamics that you have, because as you start to empower yourself more, some people in your life may not resonate with that, and so therefore you might find that some of your relationships change, some of them end, and that's and like you said, also with your health, it's not just okay, I'm no longer going to have any heavy metals in my system. There is a detoxing process that we go through, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's a constant practice of truth and self-reflection. I think that it's, a lot of people, I guess, feel or assume that when you do this work on yourself, that you get to a certain point and you're just done, and it's not like that. There's always opportunity to assess where you could have been more congruent in your day, in your week, whatever. And I suppose a big part of it is not taking yourself to task every time you fall out of balance. It's about recognizing why and just finding the way back. So yeah, I guess a lot of this work comes with some uncomfortable emotions, uncomfortable feelings, but they're all part of the stepping stones towards further empowerment and evolution.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we love to be in balance and we love to have our inner peace. And then, as we're strolling along, strutting our stuff because we've mastered the crap out of 3D, and then we come across a situation where we have to be, playing our roles to our other friends and family, which, will lower our vibrations to be able to have those normal, natural responses and dialogue and conversation. And we're still supposed to keep ourselves in balance. It is very tempting when you start dealing with people in fear and worry and doubt and victim mode and all of that other stuff to not react to that. I mean, that is a really hard thing. I wanted to say, but you get better at time and balance. But it's not that you are falling and slipping back into 3D. It is more you're of service to those people having the 3D. You'll get used to having conversations where you're not reacting and being frustrated that they can't see where you're at. But it's if you feel like you're starting to get into an argument and you're starting to feel like triggered yourself, then go straight to love. I love you, my friend. You know, like, who knows the answers to the universe? You know, but it is such a complicated thing, and this is why so many of us like to be hermits and not actually have to deal with people, because it's too hard. It is too hard. Those empaths that are absorbing everything. I really have discovered that, you know, even being on social media, when you're trying to share love and profound messages of love, you're feeling people's reactions to that. How dare they try to tell me to love myself? Who the hell do they think they are? You know, like, you get that lashback, and, you know, energetically, we can feel that. We can feel all our friends who are on social media who are panicking, freaking out, you know, having a blast in 3D and all the range of emotions. And as light workers, I think when we see their struggles, even if we don't have a conversation with them, we can energetically absorb their fear and worry. And isn't that what light workers are supposed to do? Instead of ignoring them and treating them like they've got leprosy, actually just witnessing their own reactions to life on social media, sending them love. And, you know, it's a fine balance. I think intuitively we know what we're supposed to do, but often we want to be the heroes, come in, tell them the answers of the universe, blow their brains out with all the dramas of everything, the stress and fear and worry, and say to them, don't you feel so much better that now you know the truth?
It's so important to meet people where they're at, you know, and because if you think about your own journey, there would have come a time where, if you think about yourself 10 years ago, maybe talking to yourself as you are now, you'd probably think you were nuts, you know. And so you've had to kind of come to terms with your own journey and your own evolution, and there are parts of you now. I often think about myself 10 years ago and think, God, if I'd have met myself 10 years ago, I'd be like, who is this weirdo, you know? And so obviously knowing that journey of my own, it's important to kind of recognize where other people are at too. And like you were saying, I mean, there are people out there that think they're doing the right thing by shouting from the rooftops about all the things that are wrong with the world, but they're oftentimes shouting to people that are already quite scared about what's going on in the world, and they don't need extra stress to help on top of what they're already dealing with. Rather, it would probably be better if we could just actually support them with what they're going through in the moment, so that they can find a more or a less explosive way to truth, you know, because the truth is it's a powerful force to work with, and some people need easing in.
Definitely. But then, you know, we make these assumptions. We're the only person in the universe that's changed and grown. Everyone else is where we left them. You know,
Yeah.
it was that awkward situation where, you know, I mean, we know people are waking up very quickly with all of this stuff that is blatantly obvious to everyone who's watching what's going on. And so we have to remove our assumptions of where our friends and family are, and actually be able to have a conversation and engage with them and actually ask them how they're doing, what's happening for them. And that's a huge thing for people to get over, because, you know, however the relationship finished, you know, it was very heated and very reactionary, too dense, didn't quite know how to serve humanity when you're going through your own awakening moments. And, you know, it does get kind of complicated, but we must be able to give forgiveness to ourselves, give forgiveness to others, and be able to really see each other as, you know, these light beings having a very dense experience. And, you know, we're going to be on the other side of it soon. And, you know, we all know what we could be doing, and we all know what we are doing. And when they see things from the other side as well, knowing what they will know, what you know. And if you haven't reached out to those people that you sense really do need a little catch up with you, just to be given a little bit of a love, bubble message or something like that, this is a great opportunity for you to all sort of, step up and love each other and forgive whatever's happened in the past. Because if we're still here and some really huge, big traumatic things occur for humanity, wouldn't you want to have that friendship blossom again now versus afterwards?
Absolutely, yeah. And I know in my own journey that, early on there was a lot of people that I felt just didn't get me, and that created friction in relationships, and a lot of them went quiet for a period of time, and it took a bit of time for me to realize that that's not who is that actually helping, who's it serving. And I've reached out to people and just I don't need to get in touch with them and start talking about the world and how it's all coming, how everything's coming down. It's just, how are you? Well, how have you been since I last spoke to you? And it's actually surprising how many people are just really happy just to hear from you, and just really happy just to have that connection again. And your relationship isn't defined by how you relate to the rest of the world. It's just defined by how you support each other in the moment. So
yeah. And people's reactions really aren't personal. It's their reactions to their coping of the situation. So when you are already overwhelmed and you're having a reaction, it can't possibly be about you and the role and the experience that you both were having. It's you were out of high school at this point, aren't we? I think we're kind of. Oh, and I wanted to say to you, when you were talking about Lyme disease because of being bitten by something, I feel like people get bitten because something's actually biting into you. It could be the pressure of the truth. It could be something else. You are feeling like the world wants to eat you up. And, when you are having that reaction of being bitten, because ultimately it's a reference of, something is eating at you. And what could that be? We have to keep questioning what is the true message here. And our subconsciouses, our teams, are just a little thought away. And if we actually ask them, what is the messages here? What's the purpose? What am I missing? What am I supposed to learn and understand about this? And allow yourself to feel the senses of what it's relating to. The hardest thing I find, David, is when people come, they want healing, and when their subconscious says, oh, it's because she has this belief system, oh, it's because he has that belief system, and they're creating the client's almost like, well, can't they just fix it? And it's like, but if it's your own belief system, can't you just fix it? There's not a pill, it's not magical words, it's not unicorn fairy dust. It literally is you changing your belief systems and behaviors and reactions to heal from that. Yeah. And so many people are like, but Joe, that sounds like I have to do work here. I want the solutions, I want it to be fixed. And the reality is, if it's your belief systems that keep repeating over and over again, you're going to create it. The gut bacteria can be instantly balanced in a session. But then if you're going to have antibiotics, or you're going to have some different foods that are going to throw out that whack of that gut bacteria again, you're going to recreate it. So why can't have sessions, get the subconscious to do this profound healing for you, and then go back to crap and to have bad routines and styles? And then they say, oh, it didn't work. And it's like, when you can be honest with yourself and you're honest with me, why you're still sabotaging your body, let's have a conversation.
Yeah. And I think on that, we are beings of nature, and so the nature is always trying to find its way back to balance, and so our biology is part of that. And if our biology is expressing itself in a certain way, it's an opportunity for us to ask, where what is imbalanced within me, and that includes my thoughts and beliefs and attitudes. Because one of my mentors, Caroline Mace, talks a lot about how a lot of people will talk with a lot of conviction about what they don't believe in. I don't believe in this, I don't believe in that. But when you ask them, what do you believe in? They don't know. They can't really put their finger on it. So they've got all these beliefs about things that they don't want in their life, but they can't really connect to what they want to cultivate. And I think that that's a really important line of inquiry. And especially if you look at your biology through the law of balance, then you can start to say, well, what is imbalanced about the way that I live, and what beliefs do I hold that actually create stress in my system? If I feel a certain way about something and it keeps getting me to a point of overwhelm or stress or anxiety, then I would say perhaps you need to look at that belief. And if that belief is not empowering you, can you change it? Because if it's not doing you any good, perhaps you need to address why that is. And you, obviously your biology is there, your body is expressing that in some way. So it's one thing to take a medicine and clear up an illness, but if you go back to the same habits, behaviors that you had prior to that, there's a good probability that you may start to experience the same thing again at a later stage. I'm not saying that that's absolutely guaranteed, but really, if we don't look at the holistic nature of our reality, then we're kind of missing the whole picture, is what I'm trying to say. So it's important to when something is expressed in your body or in your emotional body, to look at all the energetic influences of that, and how you can make adjustments or changes so that you can experience long-term balance going forward.
Absolutely. And you will recreate it. If you created an illness or disease because of your belief systems and you magically got it fixed with medicine or metaphysical, and then you still continued on, absolutely you'd create it again, because your mind's so powerful. It will hear what you're trying to say. And with the whole speaking your truth, and if you are suppressing speaking the truth, or if others are suppressing you speaking your truth, say goodbye to your thyroid. It will be literally eaten out of you, because it's all of that pressure. Your whole organs are very emotionally sensitive to your own emotions, and they will either be loved or they will either be destroyed because of your lack of love of them. And, I know some people feel that each organ has a consciousness, and they will, if you do not honor them, they will have a pity party and they will do certain things. But I mean, it's all, we're all connected in everything is, what it is. What I wanted to say is, when we're talking to those clients who know that they're suppressing their voices because, they have, an abusive adult in their lives from either childhood or their current partner or work colleague or whatever. And I sort of talk to them and say, well, would you be open to start speaking your truth? Oh, no, I can't because of someone else. So that's instantly still disempowering themselves because someone else is making them do this. Again, I want to say with much love, only we control our emotions. Only we're not victims to anyone else. And that is giving excuses away for us being ill, or us not living our best lives, or us not doing our inner work. Oh, it's the kids, they're making me do this. Oh, it's, if we're blaming anybody for how we're living, you can't. And I just want to say this, money is not a good excuse either. Money is not an excuse why you can't have a healthy body or in a healthy mind. There is literally no excuses. You are a powerful being manifesting amazing things, or manifesting horrific things. Your choice.
And a lot of it comes down to your attachment. You know, where are you other than here, basically? If you're not present, if you're attaching any part of yourself to an idea, an event, then you're, as I said earlier, you're siphoning off your energy to something that is not, that's an illusion, basically. You know, and the question is like, if you like, what has more power, that which you've already created, or the power you have to create something new from this moment? And where do you want to put your energy? And you know, if you start living more authentically in the present time, then you would start to see massive shifts in your health and your healing journey. And so, as you said there about someone else taking your choice away from you, well, how can you start to make your own choices? And if you can't, how can you potentially move into a place where you can start doing that? And it's not easy for a lot of people, and it's not to say, and I you know, I hope that we're getting across that it's not that we're saying you can just flip a switch and everything's going to be great. But this is really what the journey of self-reflection is about. And also, we talked a little bit about talking to your team, to your guides, you know, help me understand this, help me understand what choices I'm making, what beliefs I hold that are preventing me from healing. And you'd be surprised at how much truth will actually just flow from your mouth if you just speak without judging yourself.
Yes, yeah, that's what we were speaking yesterday. It was so fantastic. And that's why when we're talking to our friends who are wanting to tell us and share with us their experiences of their lives right now, so important to let them talk. Because as they're talking to you, really what's happening is that their teams are leaking out and sharing what they need to hear for themselves. And if we come in to try and, you know, be a hero and give them all the answers and solutions, we're disempowering them for them to be able to get it out for themselves, because they need to have their own awakening of enlightenment, of aha moments when they speak through themselves. So it's really good when we're listening to our friends to almost repeat what they're saying, just so they can hear it as well. Oh, wow, so you're feeling scared about this. Tell me more. And allow them to go down the rabbit hole. Obviously, we always have friends that loop and love the stories and the dramas. But when we feel like they're just looping with their conversations, we can ask them, what do you think this lesson is for? You know, really make them question this instead of just repeating the dramas. Also, I know that for many people, when they have had their awakening moments and they've empowered themselves and they're really awake to what's happening, and they may have a controlling relationship from somewhere, you know, they've really struggled because the person who likes to control them and manipulate them, they're not actually able to do that anymore. That makes them feel very unbalanced, and you've effectively changed the nature of a relationship which they're really used to and very comfortable with, and this makes them feel very scared and unsure, because if they are so out of control with their own lives that they must control you, they're also then going to feel that they're going to have more out of control in their lives, and that scares them because they're ultimately trying to manipulate you and suppress you and control you because they have no control over their own emotions. So we have to look at everyone's behavior and also question, why are they reacting like this? What is their inner work showing me that they need to be working on? Narcissists is a very classic example of profoundly broken children reacting as adults. There's all these labels that we commonly throw and abuse and brand and judge our fellow man and woman. But if we actually had compassion and could see why they are reacting like that, we would actually realize, instead of hating them or feeling frustrated and reacting, actually realizing this is their bigger inner work screaming out to all.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's so easy to blame our parents or our past for for the reason why our life is the way that it is. But we kind of, a lot of us stop there and don't reflect on the fact that, well, what made them like that? What was their life circumstances that made them behave in that way? Perhaps there's something within them that, because this experience, really, this human experience, is all to do with our perceptions of our personal power and how we feel about that. And so if we are trying to control other people, it's generally a sign that we don't feel like we have any control within ourselves. And that's why we have to do that to others. And so the teaching there is, well, that person doesn't feel empowered, and that's the way that it's expressed through them. Somebody else doesn't feel empowered, and it's an attack of the self. We all express these feelings of self-esteem or low self-esteem or whatever is in different ways. It's just that certain expressions of that get judged as evil, and certain expressions of that get judged as, oh, that poor person, bless them, and all that. So we have different responses to different expressions of the same emotion. And I think we're all human beings. We're all going through this journey together, and just because someone is expressing something differently to us doesn't mean that they're an evil person or whatever. There's always an opportunity to look more compassionately at a person and understand there must be something going on with them, because nobody is born evil. Nobody is born wanting to destroy other people. It's a condition of their circumstances that they've perhaps not integrated. And so how can we have compassion for that?
Easy. When we choose to have compassion for others, then it's easy. And so usually those people who are wanting to control us, usually they will, if they feel like they're losing control, they will want to have an argument so then we can lose our utter minds and shit and then react to them, so then they can feel like, haha, I've pushed them to their breaking point. So instead of feeding into the anger and feeding into the manipulation for us to react, because ultimately everything that they are doing is for us to react, why don't we feed into their emotions by asking them, what are you feeling right now? And it totally can disarm, because as we know, we're all allergic to feelings. And when someone's losing their control and wanting to manipulate us and make us react in their ways, by us asking them how they're feeling, they don't want to acknowledge it. So it will literally stop an argument, won't it? Theoretically, because we're making them question their behaviors, we're making them question their reactions, and we're making them question their emotions, which they obviously have never wanted to think about or feel or be accountable for.
Yeah.
Would that work?
I think so. I think that any opportunity you can take to take a higher perspective and inject a bit of grace into a situation is always gonna potentially lead that to a resolution or a place of balance. I mean, really, I guess that kind of analogy of the mustard seed in the mountain comes in, where really if you can cultivate the smallest amount of grace into a situation, that can grow from there, and you can really focus on that and allow that to grow and become powerful enough to eventually move that mountain that's been blocking you. And I really think that's what that analogy is all about. So yeah, how can I guess a question in self-reflection for a lot of us is, how can I be more loving? And if you're talking to your team, show me how I can be more loving in this situation, not just to myself but to the situation. How can I give more love to this? How can I give more compassion? And if you ask for that guidance, if you ask for that inner revelation, and you have faith that it's going to be shown to you, then it will, and you can just keep growing that from there.
What about when we start feeling like we're about to react to someone who is trying to control us or try to make us unbalanced? What if we start feeling that, then we instantly respond back with, I love you?
Well, I mean, I don't think you can just say to someone, I love you, because that might infuriate them too. I think that journey of how to cultivate, how to be the most loving in this situation is really an internal inquiry, where you might then be given inspiration to use certain dialogue that's going to diffuse a situation. Like you said, if you ask them, well, how are you feeling? Because I guess a lot of time in those heated exchanges, one person just really wants to get their point across. They just want to win the argument without really getting down to the nitty gritty of how am I feeling towards this? What's really driving the reason why we're in this exchange in the first place? You know, and I think
So would the real question then to be and say is, I love you and I really want to understand your feelings now.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes the most humble thing you can do, or the most graceful thing you can do, is actually move yourself out of that situation to save yourself saying something that you can't take back. You know, and I think that's where an injection of grace might come in, where your inner self says, "Hang on a minute, don't say that, because if you say that, this is gonna blow this wide apart. So just be humble in this moment and don't explode. Just hold." And actually take time to reflect on this and come back later and say, right, you know, because it's so easy to get into the heated exchange of just wanting to win and then saying something that you really don't mean, but you're just saying it because you want to win an argument. But if you can cultivate a little fraction of grace in there, just to kind of give you that space so that you can go away and reflect and come back and actually have a more a balanced discussion, then you might actually start to make some headway there.
Well, fingers, toes, and eyes all crossed for that. Because it does become quite reactionary quite quickly if we abandon all logic and want to lead with emotions.
Of course, yeah, and that's one of the biggest challenges of the time. I mean, we've been living in this age of reason and logic, where everything has to make sense, everything has to be a certain way, and everything's got to be fair and just. And unfortunately, that's just not the way the universe is structured. And so I think, but it's not like you can have that immediate injection of all that wisdom coming in while you're in the throes of an argument. But I think the more space you give, the more time you cultivate in your own personal practice of reflection, and you start to understand your own, because whenever you're judging someone, you're really just looking at another reflection of your own potential. And so the more you start to learn about yourself, the more you realize you're the same as everybody, and therefore you can it's much easier to not get into those really heated exchanges, because you're coming at them with a much more balanced view from the get-go.
We have to have profound love and acceptance of ourselves and our belief systems and what we feel is true, and then be so okay with who we are and what we know and what we feel that we do not have to convince anyone else to have the same outlook or experiences or opinions from us. And so therefore, as soon as we're not seeking out other people's validations and, belief, we're not trying to seek followers, we're trying to seek acceptance of all, including ourselves. And while others may not be at that mature level of accepting where we're at, we totally can accept everybody where they're at, because it really doesn't affect us how they are, in terms of we will not let them bait us into arguments. We will not let them erode our self-empowerment, because we've already for so long loved ourselves and had such profound self-empowerment that we're unshakable now. We have such great compassion for others because we know why they are reacting certain ways, because it's always a lack of their own inner work, which we can see clearly because we've already done our own inner work to get to that point. I'm hoping.
Yeah. I mean, that's the hope, isn't it? I mean, I guess a lot of people who really get stuck into the journey of the self and self-empowerment, self-esteem, and even some of the old mystics, I think one of the struggles for those is that you get to a point where you realize that despite all the stuff that's going on the earth, all the evil that you experience and whatever it is that because that you're of the spirit, that you're the real journey that we're on here, you have to take that position of being the most compassionate, even if someone else doesn't want to, and I think that's what's difficult for people is, why should I why should I be living in this situation when they're being like that? And it's like, because you've taken that decision to follow a spiritual life, and so you do need to be the one, because someone's got to be the first person to be the most loving. We can't just keep batting off each other and saying, well, you go first. No, I'm not. Until you say sorry, I'm not saying sorry. Until you this, I'm not. One of us has to make that move to be the most humble. And why shouldn't it be you?
The old classic, well, why should I do my inner work when so-and-so that I know hasn't done any? And it's like, oh, that's cute, because you know the life contract of the other person and the lessons and experiences. So you therefore want to compare and assume you both have the same life purposes. And the most sleepiest person in someone's family, which I have heard many times in sessions, they're huge, bigger, light working beings that don't need to master 3D in this life, because they already have. They're wanting to be asleep, to be holding more energy, to be able to be less distracted, and to just be here of service, and whatever that looks like. And so many spiritual people judge the shit out of them because they think, no, you're supposed to be a guru now or an influencer now, like what they think they're doing. And the reality is, we can't compare ourselves to this journey. We know intuitively what we're supposed to be doing, and excusing ourselves from doing our inner work because of other people doesn't cut the mustard. And I say that with much love.
Absolutely. No, we've got past that point now where the spiritual life is not. It's not that word spiritual is really lost its meaning in a lot of ways, because we think we can connect to its energy through practices such as yoga and breathwork and cacao ceremonies and all these things. And while obviously those things are great tools along the journey of the spiritual life, spirituality is a journey of courage, self-esteem, and commitment to truth than anything really. And that if you want to walk that path, then you do take that responsibility to be humble in those situations when you know that somebody else perhaps doesn't know that information. Like you were saying, we know they've got a contract, and at the end of the day, we don't know what their contract is, and we don't know what's best for anybody else either. We can only support people where they are at, and like this is really what we were talking about from the beginning, is just to manage someone's emotions is not to tell them that they're wrong. It's to help them understand their emotions by asking them questions about how they feel.
I love it. Yes, spirituality, not a hobby, actually a lifestyle. Okay, well, I must get going. Is there any final words that you would like to share with the people listening?
I hope that we've been of some value. I think that all I really want to just emphasize is that self-reflection is such an important part of this journey. And in any moment when you're experiencing an imbalance in your emotions and your physical health, the question is, let's have a look at my choices here and my thoughts and my beliefs, and see if there's any way I can find an imbalance there.
Lovely. Yeah, absolutely. We're all so powerful when we choose to be powerful, and we can all be so disempowered if we choose to be disempowered. Yeah, and absolutely. All your teams are choosing, and they've got their fingers and toes crossed, hoping that you would choose empowerment, because truly no one's life contract is to be disempowered. Everyone's life contracts is to have self-empowerment, to believe in self, to love self, and to love others. And it's simple. Don't let other people make it super complicated for you. Love is love. Compassion is compassion. Judgments, stupid. And there she went, 3D bottomed out. Yeah. Okay. Sending love and great high vibes to everyone who is still wanting to be of service.
Much love. Thank you.